Now, listen,
Yep.
I'm not telling you that we never got mad at a driver at a race, or that a
Of course.
driver never got mad at us at a race. But that's okay. That's like you said. It's like family. You tell me a family that doesn't ever feud, and I'll tell you you're a liar, right?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you wanted it, you got it. The place for the untold, real, raw, and juicy stories of dirt track racing. It's Dirt Track Confessions. And now here's your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Dirt Track Confessions. I'm your host, Mandee Pauch Mahaney. On this week's episode, we have some good family friends joining us that I am very thrilled to be sharing with all of you, Glenn and Bonita Hyneman. How are you two doing?
Good.
We're doing well.
They're doing well.
We're in Ocean City, Maryland, right now at our condo, so it's kind of our happy place right now.
Okay, I got them in a good, happy place. I like the sounds of that. So, for some of those who might not know Glenn and Bonita, now they are the owners of the iconic, I love to say iconic because absolutely iconic, number 126 modified that hails from the great state of Pennsylvania. And they have honestly, I feel, been making their mark in this dirt world since the late 70s. We're not aging anyone. We don't have to quote me on it. But definitely gonna let you guys tell your story. I know you two were a young couple enjoying the races. Fast forward 40 years, guys. I can't even imagine if either of you even fathomed like what you guys would have achieved. You know, looking back in the 70s, like where did this even get? Where did this get started? I'm so curious.
Well, I'd say that the the when you say iconic or whatever, it's really the privilege that we've had to have some of the greatest drivers of all time that were willing to drive our car that made us, iconic. It would be
Yeah.
iconic if we didn't win a lot of races and have great people surrounding us, not only in the pits but in the driver's seat. And I can honestly tell you from my perspective that um, every driver that we ever had is still a friend of mine, and I feel a privilege to have them behind the wheel of our car.
Yeah. Now, okay, I know Bonita's a little under the weather, but maybe if Bonita, if you'd like to tell us, because I have a funny feeling Bonita kind of might lead the way here. How did you guys even decide to become like car owners or a team, I should say?
Oh, it was all Glenn.
Oh, was it? Okay, all right.
I don't know about that. we when Benny and I were started dating back in Reading, Pennsylvania, we went to the Reading Fairgrounds. And her and I sat in those seats Friday night, every Friday night, even if we went on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
We were there Friday night, and then we went on Saturday, to support, Gary Gollop. My friend Bill Bryan kind of got us into it, and he had Gary Gollop as a driver, and that's what really started the whole thing rolling.
Okay, so you guys started out with the modifieds, and now 90s you kind of had the inkling to dabble into the sprint cars. Now, correct me if my dates are wrong, but I'm just going off of what I've been told over the years, so I haven't fact checked this. But what was that like? You had such a standout time in the 80s, and you're like, you know what, we're gonna shift gears here.
You mean to the sprint cars?
Yeah.
That was me.
Okay, that was you.
Yeah, that was Glenn because I hated leaving Flemington with your father.
Yep. So what led you to want to go sprint cars, Glenn?
Well, they're in our backyard, and I would
True.
go to Williams Grove and Lincoln and Port Royal, and so I just sort of metamorphosed into. I wanted to do something different. I've always my whole life, it's like no matter what I did in life, whether it was the pretzel bakery or the car washes and storage or the fabrication shop, I always wanted to do something else. Like I always wanted to keep it fresh, and I think that's why I went, from the modifieds to the sprint cars and then back to the modifieds again.
Yeah. So would you say there were any learning curves going from, because again, you were with the modifieds for, I'd say, like over a decade, and then you started dabbling with the sprint cars?
Oh, a lot of a lot of learning curves with the sprint cars. I mean, it's really, other than the fact that it races on dirt, it's a totally different animal.
Yeah. Now, how, I mean, toss me something. Difference between
Well,
like
modifieds.
like owning modifieds and sprint cars, or is it the team? Is it the driving style? Is it the equipment? What would you say?
Well, the biggest thing, the modifieds drove off the right rear, and then sprint cars drive off the left rear. Modifieds have no wing, and sprint cars have a wing, and front wing and rear wing. So it really changes how you set up a car and how you approach the race.
So when you went, because guys, I mean, I maybe was like one when this happened. When you guys went from the modified to the sprint car, did the team you had like that were, I don't know, maintaining the car, did they transition with you, or did you have to
Yeah.
find new people?
No, for the most part,
Same crew.
they stayed with me. You know, I think I treated them well, and we were friends, and
Yeah,
they just kind of stayed with me. And we were all local. You know, we were all close to my home. So,
that's true. So
but
yeah, I mean, Bonita touched on it, is you guys are racing Flemington, and that had to been like a 2 to 3 hour drive for you guys.
Yes.
yeah, good two
Yeah,
hours. Yeah, it was good.
yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
two
Whereas
and three quarters.
Mhm.
when you transitioned to sprint cars, like you said, it was in your backyard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I remember. Listen, I feel like tied to you guys here. Where back in 2023, when you guys decided that you're going to end the era of the 126. However, that was what, 2 years ago. Okay, not gonna lie, guys. Fast forward, you're back. And I must say it didn't. Oh yeah, I know it's her. It didn't take too long, but I know some people might not know this too, is you guys did take like a hiatus or two when you were like, I don't know what, in the 90s and stuff. You had like your businesses, you had your kids growing up, but this time, what brought you guys back? I guess this is a Bonita question.
That's a question for you.
Well, it kind of went from he sold the truck and the trailer and the motors and the cars and I just said just keep one car, just hang on to one car, and then
Yeah.
we had a couple motors that we still had, and just kind of got back into it.
Well, truth be told, I told her I had this car, and then I said, "You can do with it whatever you want." She said to me, "Whatever I want," and I said, "Yeah. Well, I want to race it."
Yeah.
So that's how we got back in. And then my one of my very best friends, Terry Fosnock, passed away, and he had a garage full of stuff there, and I just decided that I'd like to buy some stuff just to have Terry's stuff to run it while he's gone. So
Yeah.
that's how we ended up with two cars and even more motors, and here we are.
So, okay, so last year, 2024 was probably like the first full season you didn't race, right?
Well,
We did a couple races at the end of the season. Like the
Okay.
first one was Big Diamond's Coal Cracker,
Mm-hmm.
and we raced at Susky
in Georgetown.
and Bridgeport.
Yeah.
So,
But we did do a couple last year.
so
Mhm.
what? I'm just curious because I've never known life outside of guys. Like, what did you do? Did you stay in the loop with racing? I mean, you've been doing it for how long? Is it that easy to just walk away?
No, we were never really away. I mean,
Right, yeah.
you know what I mean? We I always get the racing paper, and we always watch the, watch the videos. Even when we're in Ocean City, we'd watch a race. We come down here, and when there's races on, we buy races and watch races. So
Mm-hmm. Now, this just came to me because something Dad always said is, when he was slowing down with the modified, you to be competitive, he always said like you need to be racing almost weekly. And would you guys, attest to that?
yes, and that's why we have Dominic Buffalino. They race other places all the time. So it's not like just because we only race a few races that he's going to be rusty at racing. He's just going to be at. I think he races for his uncle, and then also for
Kevin, the club show.
yeah,
Yep.
at New Egypt Weekly. So you couldn't do it. We couldn't have just a driver for us and then only race 10, 12 races a year. That definitely would not work.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. So, golden question. I'm going to assume accordingly, but is it actually enjoyable being owners, guys? Do tell.
Go ahead.
What's the real answer, Bonita?
You have
Of course it is.
the.
We're not getting an answer.
Well, now, it's fabulous when things go really well. When you win and things go your way, and it's really good, and or if you have a top 3 finish or top 5 finish, when everything's going good. But there's a lot of things that are frustrating.
Of
For
course.
for me, listen, it's a challenge, and anything that's a challenge is going to be hard to do. Anything that's hard to do is going to be much more gratifying when you accomplish it. And we won a race this year. We hadn't won a race in a couple of years because we didn't race. So it was that much better, to win that race. And I think being in business, that when you're in business, you lose as you have as many losses as you do wins. So racing's kind of the same way. It just makes it that much better when you do win.
Makes sense. Of course. Of course. They just toss you that win and you're like, we can do this a little bit longer. Now, if you guys are okay with sharing this, because I'm curious on the business side of things, whether it's you two circa 2025 or back in the 80s, 90s, whatever that looked like. But the financial breakdown, like for you guys, what would you say were or are some of the biggest costs that fans probably wouldn't even think about?
Well, obviously the cost of the cars and the engines has gone, skyrocketed in the last couple of years. I mean, the same engine we start out running at, say, at Penn National. When we ran a small block at Penn National, it cost less than $10,000, and today you're going to spend $30,000 or $40,000 on an
Yeah.
engine. Tires are the same way. Tires, and even with your crews, you have to pay for guys to come to races because it's become, it's not $12 to get in the pits anymore. It's $40 to get in the pits. So, you can't expect them to give their time, you know, and also pay their own way into the pits, So just I don't I wouldn't say there's any one thing in particular. It's basically everything that's gone up so dramatically, and yet we race for the same purses that we raced for many years ago. I mean,
Isn't that insane?
it's hard to comprehend that we're racing for this kind of money. And
Mhm.
that's why sprint car racing has blossomed in cost, but it's also blossomed in payoffs. These guys are racing for 20,000 on a regular show anymore, and they're going to spend race for 50 or $100,000 at special shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder when we're gonna have that ceiling breakthrough moment for us.
Yeah.
For the modifieds. I always sense it, like it trickles down the late models, the sprint cars, and
Yeah.
we've seen some bigger paying shows, but you're right. There's some weekly tracks that they should be paying more.
I can tell you that a weekly track that we've recently raced at here, um, I raced in the '80s. I raced for more money to win than than it is today. So I don't know how that can keep going. And I'm not blaming the racetracks. I mean, I know their costs have gone up too, but
Yeah,
they've got to find a way. If they want this thing to survive, they've got to find a way to keep up with it.
totally agree. So now another question, kind of like fan based or maybe driver based that have never raced for a team per se. Um, for an example, you know, back when you guys were racing full time every weekend, how did you two decide where your team was racing? Did it have to do with like expenses, payout, travel? I mean, you kind of just touched on obviously the payout was a huge to do, but I feel, you know, for my side of things, Mike races for like all three of my guys, right? They've either raced for someone or have raced for someone. It's not always the driver's decision.
Well, I'd say, when Craig Von Dorn raced for us, we raced at Big Diamond in Grandview and Penn National and at Bridgeport.
And East Windsor.
Yeah, and East Windsor. And then when Billy came along, then his track was Flemington, so obviously we want to go where he was best at. And after that, we went back to Bridgeport again. Bridgeport's a pretty easy place for us to get to, and wide open track. So I enjoy it there.
So I like that you touched on some of the drivers because you've had quite the array of drivers that have strapped into your cars. What was it like? Now I'm curious, and I hope you give me a good full answer here, you two. What was it like deciding who was going to be in your car? You know, are there deciding factors that come into play? I mean, some drivers, like you said, some drivers you had, and then all right, they're out for a season, they came back. Like, was there one thing in mind, or did we sit down at the dinner table and discuss this?
I would say probably those were my decisions up until now, and then it's your decision now. So when when it started out, my first driver was one of my good friends, Jeff Crane, who worked for me, and so I would that's how that started, and then I got Barry Von Dorn because Barry, was doing really well, and I thought he could win some races for me. And then Craig came along, and Craig was much more into it. I think Barry had some obligations on the farm and stuff, so Craig could do just about anything. So we went with Craig, and then I remember sitting down with your dad at a restaurant in Kirbyville, and boy, my memory's not that good, but I can remember this stuff, And really, your dad talked me into it, and he said, "Hey, I can take you to the next level, and you can take me to the next level." And that was one of the best decisions I ever made. And from there, we won a lot of races. So, I mean, I don't know. I can't really point my finger on all the drivers and how we ended up making those decisions, but I think that all the personalities just clicked with my drivers. Everybody who was in my car, I love them to this day, and their personalities and my personality, and they all clicked. And I'm not the easiest person to get along with to begin with, so to click with me, that was a good thing.
Yeah, chemistry is huge. It is huge, and I like that you. I mean, we don't need to talk about Dad yet, but I hope you two have some good stories at the end because we're talking about that later. However, I like that you mentioned that because I feel a lot of drivers when they're looking for sponsorship or they're looking to get into, someone's ride, like say for you two. I like how you mentioned my father was like, listen, I can help you achieve what it is that you want. It's not what's in it for Mandee. It's not what's in it for Billy Pauch. It's like, I bring something to the table for you. And I feel a lot of drivers kind of miss that connection.
I agree. I mean, wouldn't you say that dinner at Kirbyville with Billy and Barbara? I mean, Billy laid it out for me in a way that I really, I really never thought about it, and helped us to move on.
Yeah, I like that. So one thing I learned, I mean, okay, I've learned quite a bit over the years, but especially growing up, alongside, my brother's career, seeing him bounce in and out of rides. One thing I learned rather quickly is as a driver, if you aren't performing, I'll say this nicely, is you get kicked out. Okay. So as a driver, it can be stressful knowing, okay, if I'm not winning races, if the team isn't having fun or if the team's not making money, my ride's on the line. Now, would you agree with that? Like, is there I mean, I know every driver is different, but is there a certain timeline when you're like, all right, this ain't working?
Well, I'll refrain from using the word kicked out, but
Okay.
yeah, moved on maybe. But
Yeah.
um, I just, I don't know. Maybe sometimes you know how they say you'll know it when it's time,
Yeah.
when it's time to move on. And with Billy, I mean he had Pete Chess in there, and Pete was ready to go great guns too, and I was at that point tinkering with the sprint cars already a little bit. And so I think we both just felt that was time to move on.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just if a driver is like tied to a racetrack too tight and you don't really want to go there anymore, sometimes that is a reason. You just want to move on because I want to go to a different track than you want to go to. And we both know that if we're not where we want to be at our happy place, when it comes to racing, it's so tough and so demanding that if we're not both totally happy, it's not going to work.
Yeah. Well, guys, your happy place is at the beach. I hate to tell you
And it
that.
is now.
So,
Our
what would
happy
you?
place was the racetrack, though. I got to tell you, we gave up everything. We vacations, everything to be at racetracks every single week. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and that's one thing I actually want to talk about later on is a lot of people don't realize like the sacrifices that you guys made to. I mean, it's not like you did it for us to have a car on the track. It was to make yourselves happy, but at the same time, there were hard decisions made, and you guys dedicate a lot of time
yeah, yeah.
to the sport. It's amazing. So
It is.
obviously we're gonna say winning is like top tier. That was the exciting moments. But what would you guys say is were more of the harder moments of being a car owner?
Making that decision to move on.
Yeah.
You know, that's not an easy decision when somebody's your friend and somebody you really like, and and you feel it's something you got to do. I mean, or something that they got to do. Maybe
Yeah.
it's, in some cases with some of my drivers, like Dave Callman, we won a race at Bridgeport. We took forever to try to win a race at Bridgeport. We won a race at Bridgeport, and he decided he wanted to move on to sprint cars at a time that we weren't ready.
Yeah.
So, it's a two-way street.
This is another thing. This might sound weird, but Billy taught me, Junior, is racing for team owners is like having a girlfriend. It might not be the right season or it just isn't working and you break up and you move on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like I mean, this is my perspective. You guys give me your 2 cents, but I feel like there are a lot less car owners nowadays than there used to be. Do you think, I mean, I'm sure obviously money comes into factor, but do you think there's reasons behind that or is it just a change in the times?
No, it's money.
Money.
I can tell you. It's like you better have a pretty healthy business, to be able to support this sport. Especially when sponsorships are few and far between.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very curious, again, back to the business perspective between the two of you. Like I mentioned earlier, is it can be now, it can be back when you guys are full force, whatever that looks like. But between the two of you, did you two divide per se responsibilities when it came to managing your race team? Like, did Bonita have, all right, she covers this, Glenn covers this? I mean, how did you guys balance that?
Absolutely, and in a way you might not think of it, but we were raising two kids,
Yeah.
so sometimes it was just Benita making sure everything was taken care of for Doug and Natalie, so that I could be out in the shop getting the race cars ready to go. And on race day, it was different because we both loved it equally. I mean, when I got back into it here, um, I said to Benita, "Why do you want to do this?" And she said, "Well, I supported you all these years, and I want you to support me now." And that's, if you want to know the one reason why I'm racing a car today, that's
Yeah.
it. So.
I hope you know, Bonita, what really struck me I've been wanting you guys on this, but listening to the announcement at Bridgeport and them saying the Bonita Hyneman owned I'm like, oh, I need to know.
Well, you know now.
Now we know. And I mean, good for you that you're not wrong, because your kids are grown up. You've got grandbabies, and like they're on their own now. So now is the kind of time when you can, I guess per se, tinker and play, right?
And we can afford to do this without anybody else suffering, we're not taking away from anybody else to be able to do this, though.
Let's see. A question that I have in mind is, what is something that you feel, we'll stick with fans, okay? Most people don't realize what it takes being a car owner.
What's the question?
Oh, what you say? What do
What is
fans
something
think?
what is something you feel most people don't realize, like what it takes being a car owner? I mean, obviously money, the time that goes into it, but is there something that we maybe didn't touch on? The
Um,
dedication, for sure.
I
Yeah.
took the words right out of my mouth. The dedication.
Yeah.
Some of it's the work too. Like Glenn was always hands on, so he did like everything on the car. And then I would do, like, say, sell T-shirts when you had T-shirts, and wash the car the day after the race, and
Mm-hmm.
just all the other work that you put into it. Takes
So
hours.
I'm curious, is I don't think you guys ever let anyone, essentially, you guys always house the cars, right?
We did. The only two times I didn't was with your dad. Um, I kept the small block car that went to Penn National and the small block races, and your dad kept the big block car that ran Flemington. So
Mm-hmm.
that was one time where we split it. And now where Dominic Buffalino keeps both my cars at his shop, because I just don't have the time or the energy to do
Yeah.
what it takes to work on these cars to win races.
Yeah. Now, did you feel, I mean, okay, taking dad out of the exemption there is when I don't know, you had Craig, you had Jeff in the car and stuff. Like, did it ever cross your mind back then? Like, oh, it'd be nice if they could maintain the cars. Like, unless, was that just what you enjoyed?
No, yeah,
Yeah, we liked it.
I wanted
You
it at
could
my
see
race
it.
shop. I built
Keep your eye on
you
it.
know, I built a stone garage to house the cars that in the beginning, and then I built a race shop to have a race shop, and I wanted my cars there every day. I could walk to it. I could be there multiple times a day. So
And with the modifieds, we should say that the other two drivers that gave us at least each of them, I think, like 50 wins or more, was Jeff Strunk and Dwayne Howard.
Yeah.
And they always help.
Major.
By the way, Dwayne always came to my race shop. Jeff always came to my race shop. Everybody was local except for Billy was the only one that was further away, and that worked out really nice to split the team. Split the two cars. So everybody else was like in my backyard too. So
Makes sense. I mean, for dad, especially when your Penn National was closer to you, Flemington was closer to him, to
yeah,
split the cars,
yeah,
it makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what would you say? I mean, you guys obviously talked on all of your drivers you guys have had. You still have a great relationship with, which I love. But what's your take on loyalty in the sport, between drivers, crew, and owners? Like, was there ever a time when, I mean, I hate to even talk bad blood, but just the loyalty piece where you felt like they were going to take something with them to another team, or did you
No,
just not at all?
not at all. Never. No.
Well, you guys had some good pickings, you know that? I love it. Okay, so
Would you say ever? No.
no. See, yeah. Well, that's what you talked about, Glenn, is you vetted your people appropriately. You know, you made sure like the energy's aligned, which it says a lot.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're circling back on Dad. We got to talk about it. I'm sure you guys have some pretty good stories to share. But with all that you guys accomplished together, you guys, like, you and the three of you, well, we'll include Mom too. We'll put Barb in there. The four of you guys, you know, the 80s and 90s. And then for some silly reason, you guys took him back. I don't know. I think it was like 15 years ago or so. But I am curious. You got to tell the world, what was it like working with Billy Pauch? Like, just drop it. The world needs to know.
Oh, Billy. Billy was great. I mean, I don't. I'm not saying that because I'm talking to you either. I mean, if I didn't like him, I'd tell you I didn't like him. But no, Billy was great. I mean, Billy was driven. I mean, how can you not? How can you not like a driver who's? I mean, Billy was the only full-time driver that I had. Like that was his life. That was his lifeblood. So I mean, Billy was driven to win those races. You know, um, they didn't get it. Billy didn't get a salary. He got a commission. You know,
Yeah,
so his you know he bought his lunch with the money he earned too, just like we did. So
that's true. Okay, Bonita, come on, give me a story.
I was like, Billy occasionally threw his steering wheel.
Thank you.
oh yeah, he did have we did that's right, we did call it the Olympic steering wheel toss. Yeah, when he get mad. So one
Mhm.
time he almost took my head off at Hagerstown with his steering wheel. I was like, whoa, what was that? And he comes over, what are you mad at? I said, you almost killed me with the steering wheel. That's what I'm mad at. Now listen,
Yep.
I'm not telling you that we never got mad at a driver at a race, or that a
Of course.
driver never got mad at us at a race. But that's okay. That's like you said, it's like family. You tell me a family that doesn't ever feud, and I'll tell you you're a
Mhm.
liar, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that too is you want a driver that's passionate. You know,
Yeah,
if you get out of the car and that driver got wrecked and he's just like, huh, I'd be more pissed at the driver
yeah, yeah,
than if he did, like, if he
yeah.
did react.
If he said everything's okay, it's not okay. Then yeah,
Not okay.
you're
And
right.
I think our biggest disappointment in all our years of racing was probably the year with Billy at Syracuse.
Oh,
When he sat in the pole and just led the race for about 60 some laps.
and I'll say it:
And
a
he
lap car, Andy
collided.
Johnson took us out.
Now we can say it. Yep.
Yeah,
The one race that got away.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
the biggest
the
one.
biggest one, and it got away for no
Yeah.
reason. So yeah,
Yeah, God, love cars. So Glenn, you kind of touched on it when you met up with Dad, and he kind of laid it out for you of like what he could bring to the table, and you mentioned how it kind of changed the way you thought about things, or maybe worked with people. Can you kind of circle back on that?
well, yeah, I don't know if I knew for sure sitting at that dinner table whether I was ready for that. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, this is Billy Pouch telling me this. He certainly has the credentials already. And is Glenn Hyneman and Bonita Hyneman ready for this? So
Mhm.
that was I had to go home and think about it a little bit. Like, oh boy, I'm going from a part-time driver to a full-time driver, and
Yeah.
and he's going to have expectations of me that I'm going to have to meet, or he's not going to want to race for me very long either. So I mean,
Mhm.
that was definitely a come to Jesus moment for me.
Yeah. And I feel um you know, I don't know, I'm just tossing things out there, but like when you work with one driver, you learn almost like the do's and don'ts. And then it's like a relationship of, you know what, this didn't work out. Maybe let's do it this way differently moving forward. So when you guys were into the 90s and the early 2000s, I'm sure there were certain things that you're like, all right, this is a criteria. This is, you race for us. This is, I don't know, I don't want to say what we expect. We want to win, right? But like there are certain expectations that the driver needs to meet to race, maybe.
Oh yeah, I mean, at the level we wanted to race at and the money we were spending, you have to win. I hate
Yeah,
to say it that way, but you have to win, you know?
absolutely.
You're not gonna be happy and you're not gonna last in the sport if you're not gonna win. Wouldn't you agree?
Right.
I mean, the relationships aside and the friendships aside, but both sides of the table have to produce. The owner has to be able to provide the tools, and the
Mm-hmm.
driver has to be able to utilize those tools to win.
Yeah. So looking back over the 40 plus years being involved in the sport, what comes to mind that you two might have done differently, if anything?
I don't know.
Are we happy? I don't know. Bonita's smirking. She's thinking.
I'm trying to think because we went from modified to a sprint, and then a couple years owned a track, owned Susquehanna for a couple
Yes,
years with
you did.
a couple partners. Wasn't just us, but
It, yeah, I would listen. When you look back at this whole thing and you know, going to Florida racing with your dad, going to Florida racing to sprint cars, um, some of the things we got to see and do, and the time her and I got to spend together. And I mean, it must have been fairly okay. Her and I lasted together all these years. So, I mean, there must have been something good about it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, no, I can't say that I would change a thing. Would you? It is what it is, you know?
Yeah. I always admired you two for many, many reasons, but because you guys are always at the track. There are owners, there's sponsors that they don't go, but I feel you guys experience the life like I experienced racing. And I think that again, like you mentioned, it's not what kept you both together, but what kind of kept the wheels turning, I guess.
Well, yeah, because I think you can say to somebody can say to you, "Oh, this is what happened," but if you're not there, you don't get that same feel for what
Yeah.
happened. I mean, I wouldn't. I'm just saying for her sprint car for her first modified win, a couple weeks ago, just to be there to experience it and to lift her out there with her bad knee.
Yep.
cripple.
Yeah, I mean you can't reinvent that feeling, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We were always hands on, so I think if you're not hands on with it, like I said, just like washing the car the day after, and doing T-shirts and
Yeah,
just working on the car, like you're into it, You're,
Yeah.
like a lot of the big sprint teams now, they have just multi-million-dollar owners that they just pay the bills. That's all they
Mhm.
do,
Yeah.
and that's not who. If I had to do that, I certainly wouldn't be in this sport.
That's true. That's true. And that too is I feel those that don't go and aren't involved won't last as long.
Right.
I would think,
I
right?
would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree.
So I have a twofold question here for you guys because I always like to leave my episode with like a little nugget of advice. What advice would you give someone who wants to own a race team? And then on the other hand, advice to a driver that wants to race for a team?
Go ahead.
that's very different.
I think for the driver, he needs to be dedicated to win and
Mm-hmm.
to succeed. Let me put it that way. Maybe not to win, but to succeed. He has to be dead because winning. I don't care who you are. This is a tough sport, and it's got a lot tougher. When I started out, we had to learn how to do everything. Now you get a book that tells you the setup,
Yeah.
and you get the same motor everybody else got, and you got very little input into how that motor's built because all the technology's already in it. And the same thing with the race car, all the technology and all the knowledge is already there in a book. So um, it's a lot different now than it was then. And but for a driver, I mean, you have to be dedicated. I don't think I'm not mentioning any names, but I see these young drivers, and you can tell the difference between the ones that are dedicated, and the ones that aren't. And the ones that aren't, they're not going to be around that long.
Yeah, that's very true. So then, team owner side, we need some more team owners, guys. What
Uh,
what 2 cents can you give them?
well, you got to start with a lot of money,
Yep. Yeah,
and
that's
then
true.
after that, I mean, have fun. Really, the whole thing's based on the fact that her and we've had fun through 40 some years of doing this, and it's always
Mhm.
been fun. It's
Yeah.
never not been fun. And
And all the people, like, you we always had such a dedicated, loyal, hardworking crew,
Mm-hmm.
like guys that would just be there all the time,
Yeah.
and you could never do it without
no,
the people,
no,
the guys, girls, whoever are on your crew.
and at the
I
end of the
mean,
night, it was sit around and drink a beer and talk about other things, you know, and tell racing stories, whether they were true or not.
Yep.
And it's that kind of things that really kept everybody together.
I agree. It's such a unique sport that we get to live in.
and all the friendships you make, and everybody always talks about the racing family. It's because so many people feel like that's what it is. Like,
Yeah.
you're our family, your whole family is our family, and all the other people we were with, everybody's family's like our family.
With like,
Dwayne's and Jeff's and Dominic's and
yeah,
everybody.
I was, I'd still get a text if, something wrong with their family or our family, or if we're in the area and, they want to stop. And your dad just texted me last week and said, well, we were coming down here. He said
Yeah.
he's going to be in the area and, could we have dinner? I said, I'd love that. But I said, I can't this week. So, uh, those are things that last forever. And you can't, I don't know how you duplicate that. Uh, Maybe you can. Like, I don't play golf, but I don't know how you can duplicate that playing golf or doing something else in life.
It's so true. The relationships in racing, I can't, I mean, I just can't fathom anything outside of.
Yeah. And what
Like,
what else can you do where you get mad at somebody, can't stand them for an hour, and then an hour after that it's like, hey buddy, how you doing? You're my best friend.
I
But
was just
that's
gonna
just
say
the
that.
way it is.
Yeah.
Hmm.
God, so spot on. I love it. Well, Glenn, Bonita, thank you so much for taking the time. It was such a pleasure. I always enjoy, getting to chat with you too, and really appreciate, like I said earlier, all that you guys have done for the sport. I feel you both dedicate a lot of time, and I'm grateful for Bonita dragging Glenn back along into it. It's great to see, to continue to see you guys at the track, and Glenn, Bonita, thank you so much.
All right, well,
Thank you, Mandy.
it's been fun. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in. Everyone, be sure to like this episode, share it on your social media, and we will catch you back right here next week. See you guys.